Right. Welcome, everybody, to 52 Living Ideas. Today is a very special day. We are all delighted that Jordan Peterson is finally releasing his second book, Beyond Order. And I don't know about others, but for me, it looks actually far more fascinating. I love the first book, but the second book looks even greater because it is about dealing with chaos and making the most of chaos and thriving in chaos, which is really the tougher problem than maintaining somehow maintaining order. So it's kind of more geared towards chaos. So um, that's what that's what the book is about. So this is my little diagram summarizing what it is. It is kind of moving from Jordan Peterson's basic idea is that you live on the edge of order and chaos with one foot in order and one foot in chaos. So this is actually a very beautiful design, beautiful plan. First, writing a book primarily about how do you maintain order within chaos, and then writing a book about how to deal with chaos. So this is my diagram summarizing it. So what am I going to do during this presentation? So okay, so I'm going to first talk about this transition from 12 rules to beyond order. Second, I'm going to talk how we about our meetups and how we are planning to conduct this series of meetups on Beyond Order, and a little bit about our history. Third, I'm going to give brief names to the 12 rules that Jordan Peterson has talked about. Now, this is very tough. I don't have any inside information. I'm just going by Jordan Peterson's short descriptions of the video, and then I have mapped them on to the 42 rules that he has. And he's mentioned that he's drawing from those. So this is my best guess. I think I'll probably have 9 out of 12 right, somewhere between 8 to 10 right, and some of them will be off or modified, stuff like that. So that's what it is. And then finally, I'm going to ask 2 questions. As you know, these meetups are heavily interactive. So this entire purpose of this entire presentation is to lay out, to put things down on table, to jog people's memory. So people who are listening, I invite you to keep notes of things that you are interested in, and you will have plenty of opportunity. After this presentation, I'm going to invite on about 10 people who are extremely familiar with Jordan Peterson on their take on Jordan Peterson's new book. Um, then I'm going to open it up to questions from anybody else in the audience. Then we are going to go into breakout rooms of about 6 to 8 people, after which we are going to come back and share our takeaways and look forward to these, our thoughts about these meetups. Okay. So with that, let me get started. All right. So this is my diagram of my understanding of order and chaos. I find the metaphor of standing to be not quite right, because life is not about standing. Life is about moving forward. Even moving forward on the flat surface doesn't quite capture it. It gets it, but if you want to capture it in the most dramatic way, clearest way, um, the metaphor that works best for me is rock climbing. You can see a rock climber here. Okay, on the left is the order, on the right is the chaos. You, while climbing, when you're climbing, you need a hold to take your weight. That's what order is about. It is enabling you to stand, in enabling you to be. It's a stable foothold in order. But in order to climb, you have to explore. You have to say, what is my next step? You're using your hand to look at, look at um, where the next step, future steps holds could be you're using your right leg to scope out what is possible. You're trying to see whether it can become a stable foothold. So it's exploration into chaos from the base of your leg, which is bearing your entire weight. And once you have done that, the purpose is not to be in the state of perpetual chaos. Then you move your weight to the right leg and establish a new foothold, which from then on becomes the order. And then the left side of the body now becomes free to explore the next step. The point here is that you're trying to go up. Okay. You don't have a choice. For example, and this is very clear in rock climbing. Suppose you say, no, I'm not going to do anything. Well, your ability to stand is going to deteriorate over time. And after a while, your leg, which is bearing all the weight, is going to fall asleep. So the state of order is not a permanent state. It is a state that needs to be continuously rejuvenated by contact with chaos. You do not have the option of standing still in order. That is a move towards death. In some things that happens fast, some things that happen slowly, but the direction is clear. Okay. I also want to point out the lifeline, which is there, that you're using. That is what other people provide you. The society, many people have climbed that rock before. Some have climbed the rock. They have established these pitoons, or the holes inside. They have mapped out the path that you have taken. There are lifelines that have been constructed. All of that has been done by the grace of people who have gone before, who have taken the effort of climbing before, who have had the courage to do the exploration, who have actually tested the footholds and make sure that they are sound. And these are the people who build the lifeline for us. And this is about having respect for the platform you're standing on. And our civilization provides a lot of that. Some of it you may be aware of, a lot of it you're not aware of, but it is very real. This is the sum total of all the great work that human beings have done. And that is part of your lifeline. At the same time, you cannot let go your foothold and hang on to the lifeline as a way of staying in place. No, because then you are deteriorating all the people, who are, some of them are actually holding that line for you through effort. You are wearing on them. You are going to wear the actual physical structure that is supporting you if you give up your pursuit of climbing and try to just hang on to the lifeline. Okay. And so that's the debt to others. The other point I want to make is that when you're climbing, you're aware of the local maxima. You can see what is up now, but you do not know if there is a higher rock to climb. That's why you have to listen to other people very closely. You have to keep your eyes open for all possibilities that are there in the fog. Some of the other higher rocks may be enveloped in fog of distance, just actual fog. And we have to be aware that that exists. So it is not just the climb right now. If you want to have a strategy for climbing, you have to be aware of that. So this is my very quick summary of what I think this issue is about. In the book, 12 Rules for Life, Dr. Peterson focused on, I think he put it very beautifully. Let me go ahead and just bring up the quote here. He says, Jordan Peterson focused on how too much chaos may be remediated Whereas in Beyond Order, he explores as its overarching theme how the dangers of too much security and control might be profitably avoided. Okay. So the first book is about order. In that, I mean, I've simplified this diagram. Actually, there is an overlapping between the two books. So if you move them together with Beyond Order behind this book, there are elements of how do you handle chaos in 12 rules, and there are elements of how do you keep things ordered in Beyond Order. And both those are kind of essential parts. You cannot really talk about one without the other, but it's a question of emphasis. So the emphasis of this book is on this blue side, in the chaos side. And personally, I'm actually really fascinated by that. So one of the questions I'll be asking everybody is that, so the first question that we're going to ask everybody once we are done is, which of these two do you need to focus on more, and why? So that's one of the questions that we will be talking about. All right. So that's about Beyond Order. So I'm very excited about this book. And um, now I want to tell you about what we are planning to do about it. All right. So first, you can see the two pictures there. The picture above is a picture from 2017, late 2017, when we started discussing Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning. We started discussing this before Jordan Peterson became famous. This was before the controversy regarding the Canadian law. I got into Jordan Peterson thanks to Carl Jung. I find Carl Jung to be a very deep thinker about this particular topic of order and chaos. He's very deep, and Dr. Peterson has, acknowledged the tremendous depth of Carl Jung. At the same time, Carl Jung is difficult to access. So what I would say is that in depth, I think Carl Jung goes much deeper than Jordan Peterson. In many ways, he's the foundation from on which Jordan Peterson is drawing. Now, Jordan Peterson also ends up drawing on many things that Jung did not know. Jordan Peterson draws on biology. He has a much more detailed grasp on politics and what it can do to human beings. So there are many different areas that Jordan Peterson adds to the basic Jungian idea. So I got into Jordan Peterson because I found that Jordan Peterson's take on Jungian ideas was far clearer and far more powerful, far more easy to grasp and to talk to people about than Carl Jung. And the book that we started with was Maps of Meaning. Now, since then, we have done two. We have done, actually. So in our Meetup history, we have done three times. We have gone through Maps of Meaning. First was in the beginning. Second was, sometime after the 12 rules came out. And currently, we are in the process of going through the book very systematically. So my friend Roger and Claire lead that, and that's an incredible series. So I would recommend that. So we started out as we would do this during our in-person meetups in New York. We would get between 60 to 80 people showing up. And what we would do is that it would have the same format as we are using in Zoom. These Zoom meetups are simply moving to online what we were doing for 4.5 years in New York. The basic idea of our meetups and the way in which we approach all topics, including this idea of Beyond Order. So firstly, I want to just step back and say that we focus on ideas. We don't focus on particular books. The idea of how do you profitably handle chaos is a very deep idea. And it is actually, there is no time in my life which has been more crying for that idea or that approach of saying, than 2020 with the coronavirus. All our lives are turned upside down. Many, many, many things that we took for granted have changed, and we have had to deal with that. So, how do you deal with that? The idea of how do you deal with that, and how do you make the most of it? That's what this idea is about, the Beyond Order. So, this idea is much bigger than the book itself. The way I see it is that all books are maps of a territory. The territory is the actual issue in your life that you need to know how to deal with chaos well. That is actually existential issue. That's the territory. Map, the book that Dr. Peterson is writing, is a map for you to do that. What we are going to do is that we are going to focus on the territory using this map and all other maps. Now, this is a key theme in all of Jordan Peterson's work. This is a key theme that people like Carl Jung have explored. This is a key theme where people in other fields like Schumpeter in economics has looked at. So what we are going to do is that we are going to explore this theme from multiple angles. Okay. These meetups are about what I call the joint exploration of the world, ourselves, and ideas. The reason I do these meetups and reason why people find these meetups interesting is that everybody here comes with the idea of engaging in joint exploration of the world, ourselves, and ideas with others. We have very simple rules here. One of the rules is that you speak your mind. Feel free to disagree with anybody on anything and do so courteously. Also, so this actually implements two of them. The meetup actually implements two of Jordan Peterson's rules in the first 12 rules. The idea of speaking the truth and the idea of listening to the other person. And we try to implement that. And what I have found is that that dramatically accelerates whatever it is that you are studying. I do these meetups personally in order to learn. So this is this field of this subject of Beyond Order is a crucial subject of interest for me. And I'm hoping to learn a lot from each person who is here and who's engaging with us. Okay. I want to, so we've talked about this. We've talked about map and territory. I've covered this one. All right. So how are we going to do it in terms of mechanics? So firstly, we're going to use whatever information is out there about the book. We have no inside information. So currently all I have, for example, for making this presentation is the short announcement that Jordan Peterson has had and the 42 rules that he published, the original post on Quora. Those are the two sources that I have. And what I'm saying right now is based on that. But ultimately, you're always, I'm keeping focused on the theme of Beyond Order. Okay. What will happen is that over time, we'll keep on getting more information about the book. We will also incorporate many, many other ideas of many people's ideas about Beyond Order in these. For example, separately, my friend Michael is doing a series on philosophical calendar, and his theme for December is through darkness towards light. So this is close. This is actually the idea of you, that it is necessary for you to face your darkest fears and darkest problems, toughest problems in order to grow. And he's going to do 4 meetups just on that, drawing on many, many different resources. So what we are going to do is that we are going to, there are 2 ideas which I learned from How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. And we implement that in our meetup. So first idea is that of active versus passive reading. What Mortimer Adler holds and I hold is that it's not a good idea just to read a book from cover to cover. What you should be doing is that you should be asking yourself questions. You should be saying, what do I need to know? And try to find all the books that you can, and then actively engage with the book. Formulate your ideas as best as you can. See the response of multiple authors to that. And in this active process, you learn 10 times more. And all that you learn is actually much more usable, much more tested than you would if you were to just passively read a book. So one is active. The second is syntopical, or using consilience approach, where you're trying to take in similar ideas from multiple sources and trying to see. So this is an invitation for you to map. So the series is called Mapping Beyond Order. It is about mapping, how do we go beyond order. Okay, so that's what it is about. So now let me dive into the rules themselves. Okay, now this, let me give actually some qualifiers here before I go on. So this is again my process of reading, my process of understanding things. What I do is that I take in what I can and then try to summarize it in my own words. Okay, and put it out there. I will actually tell people about it, and people can correct me. And in that process, I think is the fastest way of grasping things. Instead of waiting for more and more and more and more information, you should keep on getting more and more information. But at each stage, you should speak out as best as you know. And that actually accelerates your process of learning. So that's what I'm trying to do. So what I have done is that I have listened. I'm hoping that many of you have listened to the descriptions that Dr. Peterson gave for each of these rules. And what we are going to do is I'm going to kind of try to summarize them very briefly in about 2 words or so we can refer to them. Now, so again, I want you to prepare. I'm going to go through all the 12 rules as Dr. Peterson described them. I'm going to use the short names that I have as a placeholder. I want you to keep track of the top 3 rules that you would like to dive into, top 3 subjects, top 3 aspects of this theme of Beyond Order. Okay. And then we're going to run a poll where I want to see what the interests are. So you get to vote for 3 of these rules to explore. And that's going to shape the kind of meetups that we are going to do. So depending on the theme that becomes, themes that are more popular, we will look for all the sources. The good thing is that Jordan Peterson's corpus is huge. He has talked a lot about this. And there are, at our meetup, there are at least 1,000 people who are Jordan Peterson fans, and they will be able to actually, if you say, okay, what does he have to say about going through darkness? Oh, we'll be able to pull together all kinds of videos to kind of provide material for that. So we'll be able to dive into each of these themes, but I want to focus on themes that are interesting to most people first. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. And all right. So I'm going to go rule number 1. I'm going to go rules one by one. I'm going to read out the description that Jordan Peterson gave about the rule. What I want you to do is to keep track of which ones you find most interesting. Okay. I recommend using pen and paper. I recommend actually keeping notes on all the 12 rules. All of this we are going to build on. So keep notes. If you want, keep a separate notebook for this so we can work on this. You're going to have plenty of opportunity to take a more active role, to make short presentations, to do kind of find resources, all kinds of stuff. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. Rule number 1. So Jordan Peterson says, rule number 1 describes the relationship between stable, predictable social structures and individual psychological health, and makes the case that such structures need to be updated by creative people if they are to retain their vitality. Okay, that's what the first rule is about. Okay, so it is about, on one hand, saying that, kind of going back to our rock. So it is all about saying that know that there are structures over here on the left hand side that are providing you with the base. Know that there are lifelines that are there. Those are all extremely valuable. Do not disrespect those. Okay, that's one part. Second, it is a climbing situation. Not only you as an individual, but us as a civilization is climbing. And it is those people who explore new holes, new paths, new rocks, and new mountain ranges to climb that have made this climbing, where we are possible. So value that. Okay, so that's what this rule is about. Okay, so that's the first. The second rule analyzes a century-old alchemical image, relying on several stories, ancient and modern, to illuminate the nature and development of the integrated human personality. Okay. Now, this of all the rules is the most complex. Developing integrated personality. Okay. How do you develop an integrated personality? That's what this rule is about. This relates to Carl Jung's psychological functions. It relates to the big five. It relates to purpose in life. What is it that holds your life together? Um, and that's what this is about. So in some ways, this I find to be the most profound of the rules. Okay. The third rule. The third rule warns of the dangers of avoiding the information vital to the continued rejuvenation of the psyche, signaled by the emergence of negative emotions such as pain, anxiety, and fear. Okay, so um, the there is a very ancient saying called "In filth it will be found." There is a crucial theme in Carl Jung of through the darkness to the light. I think this is what the rule is about. That don't avoid negatives. It is about most people when they see a negative, they avoid it, they evade it, they move their attention away from it. This is saying is that actually negatives, if you look at it from just the biological censorship, biological perspective, the negative emotions are crucial to life. It is telling you something is wrong. If you ignore the negative, that which is causing harm to you does not go away. It remains. So your path forward is to go through that, to have the courage to do that. Now, this is a field that we have studied extensively, and we're going to spend the entire December for on our Sunday meetups. It's a separate series of meetups called Philosophical Calendar, and the theme of December is the winter month. Winter is the hardest time of the year. It's the darkest period of the year, and your supplies are running low, but you have to go through that in order to go to the new year and to spring. That's what this theme is about, and so this is one of my favorite themes. It's a very important theme, and again, I want to tell you that we are going to focus on that separately in a separate series of meetups. We are already doing that, pre this. Um, Next one is about, let me see here. Rule 4. Rule 4 argues that meaning that sustains people through difficult times is to be found not so much in happiness, which is fleeting, but in voluntary adoption of mature responsibility for the self and others. Okay. Uh, this theme of responsibility is a very large theme in Jordan Peterson. He keeps coming back to it in many, many, many different forms. And so I look forward to kind of exploring that. So I've just summarized it as take responsibility. Next one. Rule 5 uses a single example drawn from my experience as a clinical psychologist to illustrate the personal and social necessity of attending to the dictates of conscience. Now, this is really, really fascinating point. What happens is that, we have got very large brains and very powerful brains, and they are able to see patterns. Our brain is able to see patterns, and they show up in a very soft, very gentle way of unease. I'm not quite comfortable with this. Something is wrong here. This is not right. Something like that. And paying attention to that rather than going away from that is crucial to health. Conscience is, I don't know, I don't have a good way of summarizing what conscience is, but um, it is your kind of your deepest sense of, is this right or is this wrong? And listening to that, even when things are not clear, is crucial, because it is always the beginning of seeing something. It takes a long time sometimes to kind of explicate it, to understand it, but it begins by paying attention to your conscience. Rule number 6. Rule number 6 describes the danger of attributing the cause of complex individual or social problems to a single variable, such as sex, class, or power. Okay, now this is actually, it's very interesting to see this rule here, because this rule actually is very different from other rules. This is the epistemological rule. This is the proper method of, of using your mind. There is a tendency, again, in our kind of system one or automatic faculties, um, of saying, oh, that's the problem. And this is especially true when you have kind of emotion of anger. It always looks for a scapegoat, things like that. Um, so there is a tremendous tendency, tremendous bias in us of latching onto a single cause and saying that you have solved it and moving on from that. And what Dr. Peterson is reminding us is that that's a danger that you have to watch out for. You have to look for other causes, even when your automatic mechanisms is saying, okay, I now have it figured out. Let me go ahead and just implement that, because you would be missing most of the causation. Rule 7 outlines the crucial relationship between disciplined striving in a single direction and forging of individual character capable of resilience in the face of adversity. Okay, the relationship between the disciplined striving in a single direction. Okay, so I think this is a crucial point. This is the idea about having definite purpose. On Mondays, we are doing an entire series on just this topic. Okay, so it just coincidentally, because we are actually exploring the same territory, we are actually doing some of these things in spades. So we are doing a 13-part series on a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, whose crucial theme is the distinction between having a definite purpose and drifting. In Jordan Peterson's word, are you going up or are you going down? Down is basically drifting. Up is setting a definite purpose and going towards that. So this is a huge point, and please join us on Mondays to explore this idea fully. Rule 8 focuses on the vital importance of aesthetic experience as a guide to what is true, good, and sustaining in the human world of experience. Okay, this is huge. Again, I'm just delighted that Dr. Peterson is focusing on this. I think it's a huge issue because aesthetic sensibility is crucial. It is not like, one of the things I've looked at is the great books and the great ideas, where they summarize what everybody has thought about a particular idea over time. And the idea of art in, let's say, the Greek times, the olden times, is a much larger idea than that is held now. There, the idea of art or aesthetics applied to everything that you do. It is a way using an aesthetic sense to get feedback about what is going on and using that feedback. In the modern times, it has been narrowed down to just fine art. That's not what the original idea of aesthetics was. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to it. Again, coincidentally, we are doing an entire series on romantic aesthetics. That's on Saturdays at 2:30. We are looking at what art is, what is the response people have to art, why do certain people look right like certain kind of art, and what is the difference between different schools of art, and what does art do for us. So that's again, I think, an 11-part series of meetups on that, and that's on Saturdays at 2:30. Not today though. Next one, Rule 9. Rule 9 makes the case that past experiences whose current recall remains laden with pain and fear can be stripped of their horror by voluntary verbal exploration and reconsideration. Okay, and this is kind of the core idea of the analytics, starting with Freud, Jung, of speaking things out as a way of cleansing. And it's a kind of a key point, key tool that we have learned in psychology, that by verbalizing, you're throwing light onto something, and that allows you to release um, whatever tensions, whatever problems that you had in the past. Now, the 10th one, I did not know how to summarize it in 2 words, but it's a very important point. Rule 10 notes the importance of explicit negotiation to maintenance of the goodwill, mutual regard, and heartfelt cooperation, without which no true romance can be sustained. So this is, Jordan Peterson has talked a lot about his marriage and how his relationship is based on this kind of open back and forth, explicit back and forth, of so that each partner knows how each other is thinking, what their view is, what their values are, and um, that makes possible the negotiation, and it builds the mutual respect, mutual knowledge, and mutual respect at a much deeper level. Um, number 11. Number 11 opens by describing the world of human experience in a manner that explains what motivates 3 common but direly dangerous patterns of psychological response, and delineates the catastrophic consequences of falling prey to any or all of them, and lays out alternate routes. Okay, so now he doesn't actually mention in his description what these are. So these I have got from looking at the 42 rules. And one of the rules talks about resentment, and why is it important to get rid of resentment and arrogance. And another separate rule talks about the perils of deceit. So I have combined them. So this is my best guess of what these 3 things are. Okay. And the last one, Rule 12 finally makes the case that thankfulness in the face of the inevitable tragedies of life should be regarded as a primary manifestation of the admirable moral courage required to continue our difficult march uphill. Okay, so this is about being grateful. I mean, this is a very large theme. This is a theme in stoicism. This is a theme across the board. So that's something that I think it's very clear what it is and how big it is. Okay, now I want to do one more thing. I hope you have kept track of which of these 12 um, you know are your top three ones. I'm going to be running the poll very shortly, but what I want to do is I want to do one more jump and try to connect this up with the 42 rules. Again, this is very speculative. And the purpose of it is not to guess, but to actually start working on aspects of the theme and start organizing the themes and start thinking about them, because it's not about reading a book. It is about being able to handle chaos. And in order to handle that, there are several ideas that Dr. Peterson is pointing out are critical. And the more we work on it, more we work on it together, more we talk about it, more we have presentations about it, we will be able to understand it better. Let's take a running start. Let's start understanding it. Let's start talking about it um, in whatever way we can, using whatever resources we can. And then once the book is out on March 2nd, we will immediately start doing meetups chapter by chapter to go through it thoroughly. I was stunned by the clarity of Jordan Peterson's thought. I knew that he always does that, but in many of his videos are kind of long-winded. But this announcement and the power of words there was truly stunning. So I think that both in style and the power, this book, Beyond Order, is promising to be much greater than his first book, which was wonderful, which was amazing. So I'm really looking forward to it. So, okay, so I'm going to take one final leap here, and then we are going to go to questions, and that is about the 42 rules. All right. So what I've done here is that Jordan Peterson posted this in answer to a question. He posted these 42 rules. I don't know when it was. I think 2013, something like that, a long time ago. And those rules became very popular. And those became the kind of the starting point of his 12 rule books. So the 12 rules that he has are drawn from these 42 rules. And he mentions that the 12 more rules in Beyond Order are also drawn from that. Now, I'm not sure that is absolutely the case. It looks like he seemed to say that, but I'm not sure. So what I did was that I said, okay, what are the best formulations that are there in those 42 rules that kind of match what he's talking about? So we have his own words to kind of point in the same direction. Okay, so for example, for the first rule, he has a rule saying, do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or artistic achievements. For rule 2, he has a foundation, imagine who you could be, and then aim single-mindedly at that. Okay, he's talked a lot about the importance of building a character as being the fundamental thing that you do. Really, that's we are kind of self-made creatures, and your own character is the greatest thing that you can build that makes everything else possible. Rule 3, the best match I have is do not hide unwanted things in the fog. Rule 4, the best match I have is notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. Rule 5, best match, pay attention. Rule 6, best match. Remember that you do not yet know what is more important than what you already know. Sorry, remember that what you do not yet know is more important than what you already know. This is all about keeping open the possibility that there could be other factors and looking for them explicitly. This is like the heart of kind of what is called Bayesian thinking, of saying always holding out the possibility that you could be wrong and actively looking for evidence if of asking yourself, what evidence would I see if I was wrong? Uh, 7, best match, work hard as you possibly can on at least one thing and see what happens. Rule 8, I had a couple of candidates for it, but um, the one that I've picked, whenever there was a close match, I said, okay, I'm not going to put 2. I'm going to do my best guess and go ahead and put that. The best one I have here is try to make one room in your house as beautiful as possible. There was another one about dress like the person whom you like to be. Rule 9, if old memories still make you cry, write them down carefully and completely. Rule 10, plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationships. Rule 11, the best match, do not allow yourself to become arrogant or resentful. Act so that you can tell the truth about how you act. These are 2 separate rules that I've put together. Last one, be grateful in spite of your suffering. Now, I want to tell you that these formulations are just starting points, okay? You've seen what Dr. Peterson has done with each of the rules in the 12 rules. The fullest presentation of it is going to be stunning. You're going to get, 100 times the more value from that than what you can get from this list. Even if, I think maybe somewhere between 8 to 10 of these may be the right ones, but maybe not. So this is very, very tentative. This is just matching to get us started thinking about it. But my point is that it's important to start thinking about it. All right, so let's begin. So I'm going to start a poll now that is going to ask you 2 questions. The first question, actually, I've put it as the last question here, is in 12 Rules to Life, Jordan Peterson focused on how too much chaos may be remediated, whereas Beyond Order explores as its overarching theme how the dangers of too much security and control might be profitably avoided. Which of these 2 do you need to focus on more and why? Okay, so that's the first question. So you can say either the first one, either the second one, about the same, or don't know. Those are going to be the 4 choices. So that's going to be one poll. And the second is that we've gone through this description of all these all the 12 rules. I hope you have kept notes of that, but I'm going to in the poll, it will have the short names that I have for it. So you can vote for as many of them as you think are applicable, or that you, no, sorry, not as many. Choose 3. Okay, you use selectivity. Just choose 3, and I want to see the pattern in that, and we'll go from there. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. Now, before we go on, what I want to do is first, let me go ahead and run the poll. And then we will go ahead and I'm going to invite people. Okay, so give me a second. Beyond Order. All right, I've launched the poll. So folks, go ahead. They allowed for only 10 choices. So I have the rules vote has been divided into 2 parts, and you can choose as many of them. So just go ahead and select as many as you choose 3 of them out of the 12. And then the last question is about, do you want to focus more on order or this? So far, 1 person has voted. And as soon as the vote is complete, all of us are going to be able to see the results. So we know what everybody's, interests are. It's going to be all kind of combined. All the votes are going to be combined. So vote for three rules and talk about whether you want to focus on order or chaos. I'm going to give you a little bit of time. So 3 out of 24 have voted. Folks, please do vote, because that's very important. We're going to use this feedback in order to decide what we are going to focus on in the upcoming meetups.
Hi, in question 2, seems I can only choose one. I cannot choose
Oh,
multiple.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was about to bring
Just
it up.
hold on for a second. Let me do one thing. Give me just a second, okay? All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to end the poll right now. Sorry about this, folks. I'm going to end the poll right now, and I'm going to go ahead and edit it and restart it. But what I want to do is I want to now call on people who are familiar with Jordan Peterson to talk about Beyond Order, about the presentation, anything that you want. So I've got Shelly, Andrew, Victor. So it's going to be Shelly, Andrew, Victor, David. I will start with that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start, fix the poll and relaunch it. Shelly, what do you think?
Hey, I'm super excited about the book, I have to say. And I agree with you, Shrikant. I think it's going to be even better than the first one. So I thought, I don't have any questions, but I thought I would come at it from the perspective of what led me to Jordan Peterson, and then what is drawing me to the new book, right? And I'll try and be very succinct. I do want to be respectful of your time constraints. So what drew me to Peterson back in the day was he is the first person that I ever heard speak on topics related to how I was attempting to raise my children. So for those of you who don't know me here, I have 5 boys and I homeschooled them, and I was uber mom and very invested in them and wanted to do my very best. And so part of what my goal was to raise them, not looking at life like if it was a fairy tale. And so my every focus should be about my happiness. And I was the only person I knew that was telling their kids, I'm really not concerned with your happiness. I want more for you. I want something that is a purpose in your life. Peterson talks about responsibility. And if I even back up before that, I was somewhat of the devouring mother, I think, when I had very small children. Peterson talks a lot about mothers are wired to keep small babies and toddlers alive. And so that was really my focus in the early days. But I found myself becoming just very controlling with my boys, wanting to keep them safe. And I read a great book called Wild at Heart. I recommend it for anyone. It's by John Eldredge. And this was well before I knew anything about Peterson. And it revolutionized the way that I thought about raising my boys. So then Peterson enters the picture, and he really validates a lot of what I was striving to do for several decades with my children. And it was very rewarding for me personally to hear this. So fast forward to today. Recently, some of the people here in the group know that I've gone from welfare dependency about a decade ago to now I am self-sufficient and a homeowner. I just bought a home today. And I made a post on LinkedIn about this. It was very short, very brief, and it has gone outrageously viral. So I am now, I've answered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails for people wanting hope and wanting to know how you go through the chaos of life to get to the other side. So this book is timely for me because I have answers I'm going to give into LinkedIn to this growing following I have that is desperate to hear, encouragement and answers to this. And I think this book is going to give me more of what I can share with others because they are so longing for this. And Joe, I gotta say, bud, you were right. And thank you for like really calling me out to be brave in this area. And I thank you for that. And so that's kind of the past where I was, what drew me to Peterson. And now what I'm really looking forward to hearing just him expounding more on this area of chaos and how we face it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shirley. That was amazing. All right. Next up is going to be Andrew. Andrew, what do you think about Beyond Order?
Well, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It sounds, I could listen to him. I think for many of us, it's every time you listen to him, it might be the same thing, same topic, but you take a little bit something a little different away from it. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to some clarity with regard to what things are different about this book, because I do hear a couple of the items do sound like there's quite a bit of overlap with the 12 rules. So I'm kind of interested to see the distinction, learn about that more.
Sure. I mean, the thing is that, this is just, this is like a thumbnail sketch of it. There is, he has so much to draw on, so I'm sure it's going to be very rich, and it's going to be very, it's difficult to talk about limitations of the book when you don't even have anything about it. So I'm sure, it's going to be rich.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up is going to be Victor, followed by David. Victor.
Hello, everyone. And yes, I'm really hyped up for this book. I'm quite excited. And in a way, it relates to what I am looking forward to, especially with the idea of beyond order. He talks a lot about order and chaos. And I quickly want to mention one thing about the word chaos itself. So the word chaos, it came into English in 1400s, taken from Greek. But in Greek, so we have a certain kind of understanding of the word chaos. But in Greek, the root word comes from, or the meaning comes from the idea of abyss, and the thing that exists outside of that which we do know. So the thing that which exists outside. So the reason I'm trying to say this is the word actually has closer meaning to the idea of potential. So yes, the idea of chaos comes with its own notion of negativity, but at the same time, the positive notion of it is the idea of potential. I really like this because in his first book, he was discussing more about how to mitigate all the chaos and get yourself into order. But now, so it's more like raising a child, right? Raising a child. So for first 15 years, 17 years, 18 years, we focus on the idea of what not to do. And once they are at a place, then we encourage them to go out into the world, go out and do something. And I think this book, and especially the rules he is talking about, focuses on the idea of tapping that potential in your own life once you have certain things sorted out. So this actually hits home. So I'm really excited about it.
Excellent. Great observation, and great observation about chaos, by the way. It has that connotation of negative in it, which is not, it's mostly unknown. So both negatives and positives lie there. All kind of future transformation lies there. All the potential lies there, both potential, negative potential and positive potential. And it's only, if you want to grow, that's where the growth is. So at the same time, there is all kinds of stuff that can come through it. So I think potential or unknown captures it very well. Thanks. Next up is going to be Michael, followed by David. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, order and chaos are, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead. If you could speak into the mic, that will be better.
Yeah, is this better?
Yes.
So order and chaos are two fascinating concepts to me. So I think the first order of business is to identify what traits go with order and chaos. With order, you have states of peace, serenity, comfort, security, happiness and joy. And with chaos, you have more of the discomfort, frustration, anger, anxiety, fear, pain. We enjoy the feelings associated with order, so the goal should be to carry those traits of order with you when you step into chaos. And the best way to do this is to actively seek out microdoses of chaos. And by doing this, you have a planned and manageable situation in which it's easier to practice the traits of order while standing in chaos. Eventually, you'll get better at handling unplanned chaos and the chaotic traits of discomfort, frustration, anger, anxiety, fear, and pain. Those will become indicators to seek out the traits of order, allowing you to get the most growth out of the new experience.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Michael. Great. Very well put. Next up is David. Folks, anybody who is familiar with Jordan Peterson is welcome to make comments at this stage. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So currently, just anybody, if you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, says Jordan Peterson's work, then go ahead and type exclamation mark to line up. All right, David, go ahead.
Great. Thanks very much, Shrikant, and thanks very much for hosting this meeting and initiating this wonderful new discussion and continuing on the arc that you started just a few years ago with the 12 Rules for Life and all of our discussions of Jordan Peterson to this new book. As with this wonderful group that you created, it'll be a really exciting place to analyze as we see more of this, and I'm sure there'll be more tidbits dropped from Jordan Peterson and hints as they ramp up the publicity for the book. But yes, it's a really exciting topic. And one of the main things that I see, I mean, from and this resonates from Jordan Peterson is his discussions. If anybody has seen, I mean, obviously psychology, biology, but about the Egyptian mythology, where he's talked a lot about Horus and the eye. I mean, we previously in the Meetup talked about the hero's journey, and Horus is in some ways that where he talks about going from the king and losing the eye, and the son going and finding the eye, bringing that back. I won't go through the try to recreate that mythology right now, but it sort of reminds me of what he's doing with this series of books. And I don't know how long this series is going to be, but where you start out with a kingdom that is orderly but becomes overly rigid. I mean, so what he seemed to say with the original book is that he wanted it to help people get to a place of stability from which they could grow, and that was the first book. And then, as he says, that the king loses abilities, he loses ability to evolve the kingdom, and you get into this whole journey. And that seems to be what he's talking about in this second book. Is okay, now that I've helped you, if you the readership have learned about how to get to a place of stability and order, now we need to grow. Now we need to, how do you use that, as you were saying with this wonderful climbing analogy, how do you get from that plateau that you're on, or that step, to now gaining more information and bringing that back? Because that's, again, the hero's journey, and also with Horus, that he helps resurrect the father and brings the eye, puts it back in to create this unified piece where you bring new order, where you help create an improved order. And so I think that's what he's trying to do with this book, which will be very exciting to see how that works out. I mean, how he describes it. I mean, and evolves the wonderful hints that you, Shrikant, have outlined, and what you think are the connections there. So I'm looking forward to that. And I personally, I think from the rules, I'm very fascinated. I mean, I'm sort of more epistemology is this comment of, avoiding attribution to a single cause. I think that's a really important, throughout all of our time. I mean, how that relates to chaos will be interesting, and how he wants that to be, because it seems to be more of an order concept. So it'll be interesting how he relates some of these concepts, but it's very important for people to understand and grow. And so I hope that people approach this book with an open mind, much the way with the first book, and are able to utilize this to improve their lives. So I think it's a great opportunity. It'll be a great book for all of us to learn from and share amongst each other. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, this is great. And David, it's wonderful to have you as part of this entire journey. So we went through Maps of Meaning, this is the third time we are going through Maps of Meaning, the whole book. We did, twice, first two in person, the third one is on Zoom. We went through 12 rules twice, one in person and once on Zoom, which is up on YouTube. Then we went through the Personality and Its Transformations, that series by Jordan Peterson, twice, once in person and once on Zoom. And what that does is that it gives us a base of where he's coming from. And he's always talking about that. He's just kind of explicating that, making it more clear, more powerful, more applicable. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think we have got a very good base. And also it helps a lot to have people who actually have the common terminology. So we are able to talk about this at a much higher level than we could otherwise. So I'm really looking forward to it. So folks, I'm going to take a interruption and go back to the poll. I've not been able to fix it, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going to relaunch it. The restriction. So unfortunately, if you have voted, please vote again. You need to vote again in order to record the vote. The problem, the bug is that the second question, you can choose only one of the rules. Now, if you want to choose more than one rules in the second set, then you just type the number of that rule in the chat and I will add up your vote properly. I promise you, I will tabulate the vote correctly. Okay, you can vote either on the poll or through chat. All right, I'm starting the poll. Please go ahead and vote. And after we vote, after we have tabulated the votes, we will go ahead and continue the comments. Next up is going to be Joe, followed by Sharon. So again, folks, the second question, you can choose only one. If you wanted to choose two or three rules in that, just go ahead and put them in chat and I will add them up. Okay, 8 people have voted so far. So folks, please vote, because the more we know about what people are interested in, what you're interested in, we can tailor things accordingly. Looks like develop integrated personality. Okay, so, all right. I got vote from Jonathan, very good. Okay, I've got Shelley's votes, I've got Jonathan's vote. Okay, we are up to 12. I'm going to give another maybe 30 seconds to wrap up. 6, 7, okay. 3, 2. Okay, we are up to 14 people. Folks, if you want to vote, go ahead and wrap it up in about 15, 20 seconds and hit submit. Okay, we got 3. Okay. So 6, 11, 12. All right, folks. So we've got, okay, I'm going to end the poll. So we got quite a few votes. We'll go with that. And I'm going to share the results so we can all see. These are the results. And let me see. I'm just going to look at the large patterns here. Okay, so let's start with the last question. So in the last question, we've got focus more open to chaos. So it's 7 to 3. So 70%, 50% of the people want to focus more on chaos. 20% want to focus more on order. Rest are about the same or don't know. Okay, so it looks like this book is going to be more popular amongst this crowd than the first book. I'm going to just use the polling results, and I'm going to add the other ones separately. So here we've got a favorite clearly in develop integrated personality and avoid attribution to the single cause. And then we got, let me see, don't avoid negatives, attend to conscience. In the second group, we've got singular direction as the highest one, and then this one, and then we've got some more. All right, folks, this is very helpful. And give me just a second, okay? I'm just going to take notes for this meetup. I'm going to do this, negatives, 3, and singular direction. All right, folks, thank you very much. And what we'll do is that I'm going to use this feedback. I mean, it looks like, develop integrated personality was way out there. So we will look at that. I just want to recommend to you some videos. There is a series that we did on Carl Jung. We did 13 videos where we had different Jungian analysts come and talk about the central concepts. It was a panel discussion on central concepts of Carl Jung. The one idea of his, which actually speaks to that, is his idea of self. Okay, it's a very deep idea. That is the core of his ideas. There is a video on that. If somebody could find it, just search for self in 52 Living Ideas, and if you could just put it in chat. So I would like you to start by looking at that. All right. So let's go ahead and let's continue the comments on the book. So it's going to be Joe followed by Sharon from NYC. Joe.
So I would be very, very brief. I felt like the 12 rules really gave a good definition of order and, laid the groundwork. But how, chaos did have a negative connotation in that particular series to me. And I thought that actually, I believe it was Victor, really did a nice job of redefining how we look at chaos. And then even the opportunities within chaos. And if you look at a series of lectures through Jordan Peterson, he does talk about it as to how these two actually can work together, and there's opportunities to actually within chaos. So for me, again, I think another aspect of that is Rule 6 is that I'm excited about, because I often think we attribute things that are really not necessarily, we always look at a quick fix. And I think these are deeply complex problems when you're talking about how to engage with chaos. So understanding the root causes of problems, to me, I'm very happy to see that was actually selected as with number 6, because that was by far my number one choice. Developing an integrated personality was actually another one that I chose as well. So there were a couple of them but I find that to be something, again, the idea of how we engage with chaos is its opportunity, and it's kind of redefining chaos. And we live in chaotic times where systems are being redefined as well. So I think that's an interesting thing as going forward.
Excellent. So now we'll go to Sharon, followed by Jonathan. Jonathan, I would also like you to tell me what you think about the book. Sharon, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I really actually like chaos, but I have recast it to view it as uncertainty. And I welcome the opportunity to be put into chaos where I can then make order out of it to some degree, prioritize. So this is actually, these are elements I'm more comfortable with than order. I was one of the people who voted for order only because I know I need it. That's where I lack. The other thing is, I was privileged to have had 8 years of real Freudian psychoanalysis over 30 years ago. And I see this book mapping into that quite a bit, particularly the don't avoid the negative. Verbalized baggage, to me, is a subset of don't avoid the negative. And that's all necessary, and developing an integrated personality. These are all part of what you get from analysis. So I see a lot of what I went through in this book, and I think a lot of people will benefit from it because it's hard to get the privilege of analysis these days. So I think we'll, a lot of people will find a lot of benefit. And I have a lot to say about these items because I have gone through that growth. Not completely, even some, I still am growing in some of these elements, but some of them I've really got a handle on. And I love to help people grow.
Wonderful. So look forward to your active participation. We'll have a chance to dive into all of these things, where all of these topics deeply. Next up is Jonathan. Jonathan, go ahead. John. Welcome back, folks. All right. Okay. So firstly, I have retabulated the votes based on the chat votes. And there are 3 clear front runners with 11, 10, and 7 votes. Everything else is 5 or below. The top 3 are developing integrated personality, having a definite purpose, and through darkness, the theme of through darkness. So those are the 3. Now, the good thing is that through darkness, we are going to explore in December on Sundays with Michael. So that's at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. So that, and we did this last year. He does a fantastic job. We spent only 1 day that time in person, but this time, he's going to do it over 4 weeks, and it's going to be spectacular. So that one, I'm going to let Michael handle that. Chase and Alex are doing this series on definite purpose, based on the work of Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. I recommend that book very highly because that's one of the first self-help books ever written. Not ever written. There is a long history of self-help books, including Samuel Smiles in like 1890s. But Napoleon Hill is kind of the star. He's like the pioneer in this modern self-help movement. And this is a book which is so frank and so direct that he did not publish it. And his heirs also did not publish it all the way till 2010, because it talks about those crucial importance of having a purpose and how most people are drifting, and how all kinds of institutions who are supposed to help people actually are not, and are destructive. So it's very beautiful. It's really well done. And Chase and Alex do a fantastic job. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take myself, one of the to-dos is to work on the integrated personality and see what we can do with that. So I definitely recommend that book, the video on self on our 52 Living Ideas YouTube channel as a starting point, but I will look at what we can do. So that was looking at the past. So I want to talk now about takeaways. I'm going to start with Jonathan because he kind of, his internet conked out in the middle. So folks, you can take up to 2 minutes to talk about your takeaways from this meetup. So start with Jonathan. Then it'll be, let me see. So it'll be Jonathan, then Linda and Sharon.
Yeah, thanks, Shrikant. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this. I feel like one of the main maladies of modern society is that we're so good at creating order that we order ourselves out of our own souls. We create these structures that sort of live, and then they don't really serve us anymore as beings, and then they sort of are put in place by generations before us. And so it's a constant process in order to ensure those structures, those societal structures that we create, are in harmony with who we are as beings. And I feel like you can't really talk about creating order without talking about stepping into chaos. You need both those sides of the coin, otherwise you're gonna err badly. And so I'm also interested in Jordan Peterson's take on this, because he's sort of been known as the order guy, and also derided as the order guy. So I'm I'm really interested to see what his thoughts are on, and I think a lot of his, and also a lot of his controversy has been this sort of response to what he saw as chaos. And so now I'm curious to see how he tells this other side of the coin. And also I'm very happy, like, and very excited to see what other people are going to make of these rules. I like the fact that these rules, we sort of know what the rules are, the essentials of them are, because I feel like they're the most useful when we actually create our meaning for them ourselves, rather than to wait for some, messiah to bring them down. And so I'm curious. I'm hoping we can write as much of our own book as we can before the real book comes out, and that way we'll be able to do some topical comparison between our meaning for this and his meaning, and so we can engage in that discussion. So I'm very much looking forward. Thank you.
Exactly, Jonathan. I mean, you're completely. I completely share your sentiment, and that's what we've been doing in our meetups, and that's exactly it's like you've been a major part of this, and because what happens is that each of us has to understand core issues about living ourselves, and so for us to be able to kind of figure these things out on our own is actually very, very good. And when the book comes out, we will go through the book, and the base that we will have to actually understand things and to relate it to our lives, or all the work that we've done, is going to help us a great deal. And so I absolutely, and this, we're definitely going to use the syntopical approach. Like, as you can see it with kind of already interrelating it to other meetup series that we are doing is one way of doing that, kind of leveraging different aspects of that. So absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. So it's going to be Linda, Sharon from Chicago, and then Suting. Folks, if you don't want to share your takeaways, you can always type skip and I can skip you. Linda, go ahead.
I want to thank Victor for that definition of chaos. That is going to make a difference for me in how I deal with chaos and disorder the next time. And I suspect that I'm not alone in feeling that way. I need to see it more as an opportunity. It's not the end of the world. It's what kind of spin am I putting on it? This is a chance to explore something new. Thank you very much, Victor.
Excellent. And what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit more about chaos at the end today. So we'll start with that, but a great point. Next up is Sharon from Chicago, Suting, and let's see who else is there. Let's start with Sharon. Sharon, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Shrikant. This is very interesting, and I'm just so excited you're giving us a running start on a book that hasn't even been released yet. And I'm really interested in these 12 rules. They seem very intriguing for an overall interesting life. So thank you.
Excellent. And the point here is that these issues are timeless issues. These are issues about human experience and what human condition is like. So people have been talking about this forever. People like Jordan Peterson have been talking about these issues for a long time in many, many different ways. So in that sense, the book is the kind of culmination. It is like a distillation. It is kind of presenting it in a kind of crisper way, more powerful way in a written form. But all of the ideas are already around, not just, we actually live this, and there is a lot of talk about it, and actually doing the hard work of putting it together ourselves and talking out to other people in breakout rooms, in Q&As, is the way of making these operative in our lives. Just reading a book doesn't do that. I think this is a great process. So thank you very much. Next up is, let me see, I lost things here. Suting, followed by Marco and Brian. Suting, go ahead.
Hi. So I'm really impressed by this graph that you made, Shikang. This the white to black with this step forward, and also especially also this safe line that you can grab onto. I totally recognize this structure in myself, among my friend circle, or even in my company. And I have been also saying that in the breakout room that there's actually, like the picture says, there's no real separation between known and unknown or order and chaos. There's always a mix in between. It's only a matter of whether we want to see it or not. And so many unknown is untangible. But so I work in the company that we deal with advanced physics, where the unknown, the uncertainty can be just readily proven, while but people still refuse to see that there are things that you need to step out to look into it and improve. So I think this set of rules, so I kind of stumbled into this meeting accidentally. I really I really find this set of rules beneficial for me, and also a helpful way for the entire society to grow as a whole. So thank you for the time, the meeting.
You're welcome, and we are glad that you stumbled into this meeting. We do these meetings every day, by the way. We have every day at 9 p.m. Eastern time on weekdays, and 12:30 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on weekends. So we cover a whole range of topics in psychology and philosophy. So you're welcome. So just check it out. If you go to 52 Living Ideas on Meetup, you'll see the entire schedule. All right, next up is Kimberly and Mike. Kimberly? Okay, next up is Mike. Mike, gentleman from Magic, I can yield you 2 minutes. Mike, your sound is terrible. Can you speak into the mic? No, it's terrible. Once you fix it, just type exclamation mark and I will call on you, okay? All right. Okay, so then let's go back and let's start over. In any kind of final thoughts from anybody? I want to see, is Victor still here?
I'm still here.
Okay, so Victor, firstly, I want to talk a little bit about chaos. I thought that was a fantastic point you brought up. Okay, fantastic point. So let's look at this. So what is it? Let's talk about this. So folks, now we're just discussing the concept of chaos. Okay, we're going to focus the next 5-10 minutes on that. If you have anything to say, any questions about that, you can go ahead and type exclamation mark. All right. So this is a huge deal. Okay. I think known and unknown. So let's look at kind of alternate formulations. Okay. So there is order and chaos. We can use known.
Test.
Okay, Mike, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I know, Mike, you have amazing things to say. So I'm going to yield 3 minutes to you, gentlemen.
Thank you. The first thing is that that he's been criticized about being too first-order linear approximation. He might not have read the thing we talked about in several other contexts, that the map is not the territory. When you have a finite number of rules, you end up with quantization error, and you got to be careful that it works. We need to study it. It's an oversimplification. We should remember that the map is not the territory. There's a book called the DSM-5. It's bigger than the New York Telephone Directory. Now that works for abnormal psychology and provides a set of decision matrices for taking people that are -8 and moving them to 2 so they can walk around the country.
Mike, you're going too far off the topic. The question is, what do you think about the book Beyond Order?
Well, I'm trying to say that I got one more semi-off the topic thing that wraps it up. The DSM-5 takes people that are -5 and makes them so they can walk among civilization. And you need to incorporate all of those other things to make this truly usable. But it's worth studying, even if it's not going to give you final answers. The third point is real short. There's a guy named Sapolsky who wrote a book, yet unpublished, but he wrote a book called Behave, which describes how the human mind works. But he wrote a book called Chaos versus Reductionism that says you got to consider chaos. And chaos does not mean that it's unpredictable. Chaos gives you a path for prediction. And even when you see the final result and you sort of know where you begin, but there's missing steps. And so that you have to hypothesize. So with that thing, it's a model. We need to study it. When the book comes out, I will be with you on this. But we need to consider some of these other factors to maybe make it into a usable model for specific cases.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to say that this is a book that is kind of designed for people at large. So the manual that you talked about is for handling kind of extreme psychological cases. And I don't think, I'm sure Dr. Peterson would immediately agree that, if you have a really complex psychological problem, this book is not going to help you directly. You really need to see somebody and kind of work through your specific problems. I don't think that's the goal of it. What he's trying to do is that he's trying to give you like rules of thumb, principles that people can employ generally, which are going to set you in the right direction. And he's trying to kind of step back and give you kind of just general guidelines. He's very the purpose is not to kind of give you detailed guidance on an individual level. And for that, I think only an individual can do that, or if somebody working closely with an individual can do that. I don't think a book is actually a good medium to be able to give kind of detailed guidance for an individual's life. But what it is that it is kind of distillation of a lot of wisdom from the past. He stands on the shoulders of many people. He's trying to bring together kind of generally understood things. That's always been his approach. But in terms of dealing with chaos, I'm really fascinated by the point that you made about Sapolsky and things like that. So, I mean, there's one direction I can see ourselves going, is to look at, this concept of how do you deal with unknowns? What are the methods that you use to deal with that? Like, for example, like Bayes' rule in mathematics is one of my favorite ones of dealing with that, of kind of is a way of kind of keeping open the possibility that you could be wrong and acting and always predicting what you expect to happen and correcting yourself and updating your prior, so updating your previous ideas or conclusions as you go along. So it's a way of not having a paralysis of saying, oh, I don't know for sure, so I won't act. At the same time, not saying that, okay, this is all I know, so I'm going to act regardless of what happens. So it kind of keeps you away from both those extreme flaws and allows you to kind of proceed incrementally. So that's what that's a very quick point. All right, so now folks, we are going to go into the discussion of chaos briefly. So Victor, we're talking about the terminology. So the terminology, we can use order, chaos. There can be known, unknown. There is actual and potential. What other terms do you think are analogous? So let's list a bunch of terms, and then we can go ahead and try to narrow them down. And then go ahead, Victor.
I see the word latent, in those in that realm, and information as is, that which hasn't been perceived through a particular consciousness. I see that as another term.
Okay. Okay. I mean, this kind of, there are many attempts of dealing with this. So, for example, the term that Carl Jung uses for self is analogous. So, self includes the totality of who you are, even though you're not conscious of it. So, you're conscious only of some part of it, but you're aware that there is a lot of you, which is more than that. Joe, what are your thoughts on this?
Just something that we touched upon in our breakout room, that terms that I think would be helpful to distinguishing is the difference between principles and rules. Because I think that that's a really important thing in determining what can be changed within a system. If you can change a rule, but you can't change a principle. So when you're actually putting together, Jordan Peterson's, framework, what is a principle, and then what is a rule that can be changed. And I think that it would be really interesting to see how that your book or his book fits in with your principles project. Yeah. So I thought that was a important insight, and then Victor actually had a really good example of how that could actually even work within a traffic system. But again, I think the other part of this is that it really allows for us to make meaningful changes in that we understand the unknown, because once we actually make the change, then we understand the ramifications of that change, if that makes sense.
Yep. Excellent. So Victor, you had any more comments on this? So we've got all these terms to describe this. What is it? So we have to make sure that we to capture both the positive and negative potentialities, right, that are there in the unknown in order to get the term right. So I don't know what's the best way. Another word for chaos is entropy, right? But that entropy is very close to chaos or disorder. It is not really, I mean, the point I'm making is that how do we capture in the word the fact that this space that we are trying to refer to has the positive potential within it. The positive potential actually exists within it. Of all the growth is going to come from there. Next up is Andrew. Andrew, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, it seems to me that given the definition that we've clarified, another term is uncertainty. That seems to capture it all for me.
Okay, uncertainty, very good. Uncertainty, entropy. Okay, all right. So what we'll do is we'll actually, this is very good. This is a good start of the discussion. And all of this is very important, to say, okay, what is the best term to use for this chaos? Is it better to think of it as, think of things as principles or rules? What are the advantages and disadvantages of doing that? So it's all fascinating. So I'm very excited about this book, and what I'm going to do next Saturday is I'm going to look at the 42 rules, the entire set of 42 rules, and to see what is there, because he's drawn 2 books out of those 42 rules. So let's see what else is there in those rules. So I recommend, I've put the link to the 42 rules. I think in today's meetup, you'll find the link right away. I'll also put it in next one, the next meetup, but we're going to continue this at 12:30 1 week from now to continue to work on this idea. And the purpose is going to be to kind of go back and look at the 42 rules and take an overview of what these 42 rules are doing, what areas do these 42 rules cover? I mean, order and chaos is one way of looking at it. Is there anything else? Are there other axes along which these rules are divided? So let's look at the 42 rules. So that's what we're going to do next week. Folks, thank you for coming, and thank you for all your comments. I look forward to this journey with you.